Signore e signori, abbiamo più influenza, sui tuoi figli di te, Molly amiamo creato e iniziato da New Jersey. Last week today lived presentato da Filtastic, Comics and Art.
Let's fucking go.
Hey everybody, and here we go. Ooh, had a little bit of StreamYard issues this morning, but we are here. So welcome to everybody out there in YouTube lands, Facebookville, LinkedInburg, and maybe there's other places I just don't know about. I know nobody's watching. That's fine. Welcome to Last Week Today Live. I have a guest waiting in the backstage. I didn't even have time to say hi to my guest. But before we do that, let's see who's joining us today. Well, I'd say it's been a very nutty morning. I don't know why those keep happening. I'm going to shoot, I think, a little something about it later, but I finally, a little bit later than I wanted to, dropped off my final, I should say, C3 donation. I donated a bunch of slabs. So I did send another slab. I think it's a cool slab. And I had originally planned on doing a blank sketch cover, but as you may or may not know, my shoulder has been acting up very badly the last 2 weeks. It's not quite where it needs to be. So rather than try to piece together a cover and maybe do something cool, maybe not, and hurt myself in the process, it's like, you know what, I have some old paintings I'm going to send in. So maybe I might do a video about that, but I had a certain kind of feeling about that. Before we get into it, we'll do a little bit of housekeeping like we typically do. Remember, the Comic Book Community Awards are now only, I think, like 2 weeks at this point, maybe 3 weeks, to get your voting in. I'm nominated for 3 awards: Best Unboxing, Favorite Channel Under 1,000, and Favorite Community Artist. So if you haven't done so already, I'd appreciate it if you consider giving me a vote. If you haven't, you have another email address, go right ahead then. I unofficially did not say that. Officially, unofficially. There you go. And remember, I have those 2 covers with Legacy Comics, and with a purchase of each cover, again, it's either Condry issue number 4 digital only edition, or The Job Dark Matches, the GTA variant. $1 goes to Comics Cure Cancer. So it's a good way to get a nice book with hopefully some nice art, my first published artwork, and help fight cancer. So now that we have that out of the way, let's just see who's with us so far today. Las Cruces, again, from New Mexico. How are you, sir? I think it's the only area of the country that's not raining. Dale of Suspense, my shake and bake buddy. Yeah, I don't know how I got ripped into it. You know, we've been using the CLZ app, you know, mostly for organization for a while. And Dale, Trevor, I think, looped me in, Tony, and myself to our little shakes of the day, and posted up on IG because, look, what is this? This is grown-up show and tell. And it seems like I keep getting a lot of my more modern books popping up. Yesterday was a bit of an older book, but I was kind of surprised. Evil Mike is here. No tower discussion for this week. We have, I think we're scheduled to go back to the tower next week. And there is something in the works with Salem's Lot. Hopefully I could join in for that. I don't know. We have a little bit of marital discussions done on that one. But I did finally finish the book, and I'm excited to watch the HBO series, and I might even go back and watch the older series. I know that, the HBO movie, rather. I know that Mike wants us to watch that for the show. And Dale's got a clickable link up there. Doesn't look clickable, but CBCA Awards, CBCAwards.org. Okay, so I think I said hi to everybody, and I know people will be joining us, so I'm going to go ahead and get our guest Josh in here, who's been waiting very patiently, as long as I don't hit the wrong button.
Hey. What's up?
Hey.
Morning.
Thanks for your patience. I almost used you twice in this piss.
I'm used to that. That's okay, man.
How are you today?
I'm good, dude. I'm glad that, like, in the midst of all this East Coast storm stuff, that we're still standing and not underwater. A lot of the areas around us are not so fortunate. So
Where are you out of?
I'm in South Carolina and
Oh,
North Carolina. Everything above us got toasted. Morning, Dale. Nice to see you in there, Dale of Suspense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of wind and rain, but it wasn't too bad here. But just a little bit further up is underwater. So
yeah. I have a cousin who she's a little bit further inland,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know where. I only know is I think she said it's like 3 hours to is it Greenville, the airport?
Yep.
And she usually gets nothing. And I was like, let me just text her. I've had no power. You know, all the streets are closed, all the stores are closed. She's like, on the bright side, my husband and I ate 2 pounds of bacon. So that might be something she's regretting this morning. But
I mean, I think a lot of the roads are out. Some of the interstate got washed out. It's I-40's jacked up. Like it was bad. It wasn't bad specifically right here. Kind of all around us was bad, but I mean, I'll take it. I'm thankful.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk about the weather, but I don't think there is a comic book weather show. I should look into that. We're talking about GODFOE and we're talking about Kolga.
Absolutely.
So why don't we just start? Give me if you wouldn't mind, everybody who's here, give us the elevator pitch.
All right, so the GODFOE Universe is a very expansive story. It spreads over several eras, and we have multiple stories happening in those different eras kind of going on right now. So the first of those is Apollyon 20XX. It's the beginning of our timeline. We put out a Ash Can a few years ago, and then now we have, back in January, we put out the first graphic novel of Apollyon, which was, it's set kind of in our world. It's very dystopian, Akira meets Claremont X-Men type of story. And that's set very close to our time on Earth right now. Like it's a year 20 something and that story is kind of how our world ends and how the GODFOE universe is created. And now we had the first volume of Biophile Kolga, which I have here. Manga size, 100 pages. Volume 1 came out like a couple of weeks ago. And that is set about 1,000 years after Apollyon. A lot of things that happened, the world is set up. And we have this being that everyone knows as God, even though it isn't actually God. It's a created being. But this God has destroyed and rebuilt the world in its own image. And anybody who stands up and says, this thing is not worthy of worship, this thing isn't God, whatever it is, it's not benevolent, you're labeled a GODFOE, and you're considered a terrorist. And that's kind of the world that we're building. Is it's connected, it's in the same universe, but you can read Apollyon on its own, you can read Kolga on its own and get a good story. And then hopefully, probably early next year, we have a novel called the first of at least 6 novels called the Black Star series. That's at the end of our timeline.
So
and we've got
covering the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you got the original trilogy and the prequels and the High Republic and all that stuff all kind of consecutively released. We spent 10 years planning this out, myself and Dan Evans, who is the co-creator, main author of GODFOE Universe. We spent a decade planning out the lore, planning out the timeline, making sure everything fits and makes sense, and then creating these little sandboxes where we can tell our stories. And ideally, we'd love to get to a place, and it maybe it's 5 years from now, maybe it's 10 years from now, but we want to get to a place where we have a clearly defined criteria for fan fiction, and if you fit that criteria, we'll canonize fan fiction. And so we have each of these different eras that people will be able to contribute to. And, as long as you play by the rules, characters you create may show up in one of these other books because we'll canonize it.
That's interesting. So it's like we want this. Usually you see the opposite with creators and creative types, and this is across all mediums, where it's like, hey, this is my vision. This is here. And you're like, no, I want everybody to really jump in. And if it's good enough, we'll say, hey, we like this. It's part of the world. That's very cool.
Yeah, well, I miss having something that's awesome and that you can get really fandom about. And it's been a long time since anything has come out that I didn't read and say, okay, that was all right, and then sit it down and never pick it up again. Like I want something, hopefully if you read Kolga, let's say you read Kolga Volume 1, and, then next year you read Volume 2, and then the year after that you read Volume 3. I'm hoping that when you read Volume 2, there's stuff in it that makes you go back and read Volume 1 again. Like when you get to the Volume 3 of Apollyon, I'm hoping that you're going to want to go back. Okay, this connects to something that happened way back here. Like I'm trying to create something that if I was a 13-year-old kid reading this stuff, I'd been obsessed. Like I want it to hit people the way Evangelion hit me the first time I saw it. Like
I'll say this, to be honest, I read the Apollyon Ashcan a couple years ago, and as soon as I started reading this, and then I was looking a little bit on the website, it's like it's a big connected universe. I'm like, I'm trying to remember Apollyon, because I remember really liking it, and I'm going to bring in why in a minute. But it did have that courage, like I need to go and get this. I just am grossly unorganized, like any of us, and just have to be like, is it over here? No. Is it over here? Nope. But I'll say this: I went into Kolga, Bailey Kolga, like a little, like I don't know, I'm not really into manga, but let me check this out. And just like Apollyon, it has this weird way of pulling you in without explaining too much. Because I find in a lot of independent books I've read or whatnot, it's like they either want to throw all the information at you or say, this is my character. He's like Batman, but I don't have the rights to Batman, so here's Batman.
Right.
Here's not Batman. Here, I like that you're giving the reader enough to process what's going on, but you're not spoon feeding them.
Yeah, and that's a difficult balance. We talked about it a lot. We went back and forth a lot in the process of that volume of saying, how much do we give? Because you don't want, like you say, you don't want a character just spitting exposition for 3 pages and it's not organic. We try to reveal stuff organically, but we also, we want there to still be stuff that we can reveal later. Like, we answer some questions in Volume 1, but we create new ones. The good thing is I can confidently tell you that, we've got, it's depending on the art and how it goes, it's either going to be 6 or 7 volumes probably of Kolga, but that story is entirely written. The entire story of Apollyon is written. It may not be fully scripted, but it's outlined. We know every volume of each story is already fully planned out. We know exactly where these stories end. We know what we're building towards. We know how they all connect together. And that's the thing about indie stuff. And if you followed indie for any amount of time, you know this. You'll get somebody who will put out a great, or at least a good-looking issue 1, and then maybe you get an issue 2, or maybe you don't. And maybe it's 4 years before you get an issue 2. And you can read it and say, like, this was cool. The art looked great. Like, this was really dope. But I also know this doesn't have legs. I'm not going to be reading this 10 years from now. I'm not going to be – this isn't going to get an issue 30. Like
right. It's okay, this was a good distraction for now. Hopefully you see
Right.
But,
and, that's not what we're trying to build. We've got a video game prequel to Kolga that should be out next year. Hopefully it's about 75% done. It's a prequel to Kolga. We've got podcasts that are going to be coming out. They're like scripted, like audio drama podcasts that kind of fill in the background of the Biophile Initiative, which is sort of the Kolga's past, what she was involved in. And then we're gradually revealing that stuff in the comics as well. And then there's some spinoffs that are planned as well. So like we've got a lot of irons in the fire, but right now our focus is on Apollyon 20XX and Kolga. And, ideally maybe eventually we expand and bring in some other artists. So I'm not the only workhorse, but for right now I can handle those 2 books along with, whatever side work I'm getting. But hopefully, hopefully we pull other people in.
I'll say this too. I remember reading that Apollyon Ashcan, and my approach just kind of like you said with indie books, like, okay, let me just check this out. And it was something that pulled you in, not because it was engaging or relatable, but you had this big kind of sense that this is something big that's just pulling me in. Like it almost, to be honest with you, this is going to sound odd. About halfway, and I almost felt like, look, I'm reading a Bible to some other giant universe. So I was really happy when I saw GODFOE popped up and you were continuing work on Apollyon, because I really enjoyed that story. I was like, there's something
Appreciate it, man.
special going on here. So I have to check out the new volumes. But I remember even, and if you've read Apollyon before, people who are watching this, I'll say this. It is a different feel, Apollyon versus Kolga. Like Apollyon, I felt, and I don't know, because I remember it was a lot of black and white and a lot of heavy darks. It had that kind of heavy foreboding feeling to it.
Well, and the first volume does too. The first graphic novel of Apollion's very gritty, very dark, it's black and white, and then Kolga is full color and like almost neon type colors. Kolga is very, very colorful, very, impactful colors, very saturated, versus that dark, black and white, gritty, old school Ninja Turtles feel that Apollyon has.
Well, you have, it's weird though with Kolga, it does have those bright colors, but you also have these darks in it. So it's just that much more vibrant, because it's like you have this splash of color among this destroyed dark landscape. And I'll say this too, I'm interested in the fact that you said you're doing a video game prequel. Is that right?
Yeah.
Because the first chapter, I haven't finished the last chapter yet. I have 2 kids, so it was like, all right,
understood.
Let me start this.
That's all you got to say.
the first chapter, honestly, I was reading. I was like, I don't know why, but it was like, this kind of feels like old school Castlevania a little bit. Like I could almost see that digitized on a screen. And even there was like a little callback, and I think maybe because I was doing it late at night, there's one particular panel, and I think you also sent it to me in the previews, where you see both characters from the back, and I was like, oh, this is kind of like Wizard of Oz almost.
Yeah.
But
yeah. It's, the story for people, who aren't familiar or don't know kind of what Kolga's about, through these centuries of, this being known as God, and you have all these groups that have risen to power, that manipulate and use the power and the voice of God to control people. And at one point there's a group called the Biophile Initiative who start to pull away from that and stand against that, and try to undermine this dependence on God for anything that you want, and this, an understanding that there are corrupt, evil people who are trying to control the population. And Kolga, as a young woman, as a young girl, really was wrapped up in that initiative, and now she's the last one. And we start the Biophile Kolga. She is old, like she's in her 80s. She goes on what she thinks is going to be her final mission, go out in a blaze of glory. And instead, we find out that she's been given a new life. She's been given a young body again, but she's still an angry, bitter, lonely old woman on the inside. And, now that she's got a second chance, it's more about burning everything down than it is about, oh, I have a second life. I can, do whatever, good for myself. She sees it as a blessing and a curse. And, the game really is sort of this, without giving too much away, we find out that she spent an enormous amount of time living many lives, being killed over and over again inside this mansion. And that's what the game will be, is her time inside that mansion. And, it's really cool. It's fun. The game itself is really kind of, it plays like a bullet hell version of something, Metroidvania is kind of what we called it, mixed with a bullet hell. It's very puzzle driven in a way. You have in the comic, there's a character named Stu that's a living lantern, and he's hilarious. He's hilarious. He's funny right up until he's not. Like, he's funny, and then all of a sudden he's scary. But you encounter him in the game, and he's the main mechanic. Whenever she lights the lantern in the game, the map changes. And it reveals and hides different enemies and stuff. And you have to figure out how to use the lantern to get through these different levels and kill these different things. It's really fun. It's hard, but it's fun. The cool thing is when we've done signings and done cons and stuff, we set up a monitor with a controller and let people play the demo. And that's been a really fun way to like funnel people into our table is like they want to play the game and then they want to read the story and they want the comic. And it's been really dope. Yeah, I see comics fans said body swapping sci-fi. Yeah, it's definitely Kolga is a pretty even mix, I think, of there's sci-fi concepts in it, but then there's also sort of this Hammer horror type vibe to it too. There's a lot of creepy crawly critters in the book.
Yeah, and
it was fun to draw.
I could tell like those creature designs specifically, just very unique, very creepy, and I could tell you had a lot of fun with it.
I had a blast with Kolga. It was so much fun. Which I mean, I enjoy Apollyon too, but Kolga going from black and white to like vibrant color and going for something that's a little more real world grounded and to something where I can have dripping creatures morphing into larger creatures. And, I got to put some of like John Carpenter's The Thing kind of references in there. I was able to put, I love that kind of stuff. I love old practical effects and stuff. I'm like, everything I drew, I was like, how would I build this if I could make it in a movie?
But that's kind of cool to see too, because that, even though, we know it's a fantastical creature, you're grounding it to reality in a sense. So it gives it just that much more oomph, I guess.
Thanks, man.
Let me ask you, without giving, I don't know if it's considered a spoiler, at one point in the first volume, Stu has a different type of power, I guess you could say, that kind of goes along with something that was just kind of said. Do we see that in the game at all?
Oh, yeah. That's kind of the...
That would be wild.
Yeah, that's kind of how the game works. Like, whenever Stu... So, to let people know, I don't want to tell you yet, you'll find out more about what Stu is and where he came from in Volume 2. We kind of introduce our characters in Volume 1. You get a little bit of backstory about Kolga. You don't really learn a whole lot about her ward, June, or Stu, but you get to know them and hopefully like those characters a lot. Volume 2, we get to really explore their past more, so those answers are coming. But Stu is a very powerful living artifact, I guess is a way to describe it. And he, in some ways, he's very simple, but at the same time, there's a very complex history behind who and what he is that you get the sense that he knows a lot more than he lets on, but then he'll also turn around and have like a foghorn leghorn kind of joke. Like he's really goofy until he's scary. And that's the way we kind of walk that line with him. He's powerful, he's useful, but you can't really trust him. Like there's a moment when he's left alone with the teenage character, and his tone very quickly shifts from, oh, he was goofy and funny, to now he's almost like, is he preying on her a little bit? Like he's manipulating. Like you can tell that there's an agency behind him that, that's darker than he portrays himself being, sort of. Yeah. So hopefully he's an engaging character as well. We really tried to let the book be character driven instead of action driven. There is a lot of action when it's there. The fights are intense, but like we want people to come away from Kolga and from Apollyon feeling like, wow, like there's somebody in there that I can connect with that's my proxy character that like I want to see what happens to this person. I want to know more about them. And even if I don't understand all of what's happening, I do know that I like this character and I want to know more about them.
And I'll say this too, as you're reading it, I think that's the strength of the story, is that you're getting pulled into these characters, and then as soon as you're like, okay, I know who this character is, there's a left turn, or there's this big, great action sequence. Like Stu, for example, I honestly thought he was just an object up until it was like, oh, okay, well, he's something else now. It's kind of funny because after that point, it kind of reminded me of a little bit of, if you've read any Monstrous. Yeah, it's a little bit of Zen, but definitely a different tone. And Stu, my sense is a little bit maybe more devious than Zen.
Yeah, he had to give people a little hook on Stu, and yeah, dark undertones. I agree. And Kolga is dark, but I think we balance the darkness with some humor. We balance the darkness also with a very emotional connection between the two main female leads as well. So like you can have a dark story, but it can't be just endlessly nihilistic. Like, you know, you have to balance that out. But yeah, with Stu, like we see that he's also kind of, he's in a lantern because it keeps him contained. And we find out what happens when he comes out of that lantern is, you know, he is capable of possessing a body. And when he does, there's an unwillingness from Stu to give the body up. And that could be problematic later on for our characters. Like there's these moments where he's like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to do what you tell me to. Like, I'm not just a toy. I'm not a pet. Like he has his own agency. And when he's given an opportunity to exercise that, like he gets a lot scarier. And
we're also under the impression he's a lot older, I think, than he may seem as well. Which, yeah, I mean, like I'm just getting more into the Stu stuff, and I'm like, all right, this is definitely noteworthy. And I like how you were just kind of nailed, like you're saying, hey, look, yeah, it's a dark universe, but you try not to go too dark, because there's so many stories that like, oh, you're in this oppressive future and everything, like you don't feel good about reading it.
Yeah,
like Sin City is a good example. Sin City, great book, but by the end of it, you're like, wow, this is really a dark, twisted, shitty world. Here, it's like, yeah, this is a dark world, but I'm lightening up a little bit.
Well, and see, like I'm a huge fan of Berserk, both the manga and the anime. Like I love the Berserk story, but Berserk, man, that it's just pitch black the whole time, and it just somehow keeps getting darker and darker. You know, in our book, like, yeah, it's set, especially towards the end, like things get pretty heavy, but we don't wallow in that. You know, like it's there, yes. We address it. It's part of the story. It's part of who these characters are, but we don't just like drown you in it. And, you know, ultimately we always, the biggest conversation that we had as we were, you know, because he scripted it and I'd start working on it, and then we keep going, bouncing that ball back and forth on things like, is this too much? Do we need to pull back? Do we need to go deeper? And, you know, our mantra is, we always have to bring it back to these characters. And does it make sense for this character to do this? Does it make sense for this character to say this? And, you know, that's the problem I have with a lot of, not just indie books, a lot of even the big Marvel DC type books is like you read dialogue that nobody would talk like that. Like nobody's going to stop in the middle of what's happening and have that kind of conversation. It just doesn't make sense. And we tried really hard to avoid that as much as we could. And, you know, there is a lot of like Kolga to let you on. Kolga, she's definitely a badass. She's tough. She's smart. She's powerful, but she's also like, we really wanted to avoid the Mary Sue with kind of path with her. Mm-hmm. Like we find out she's lived really multiple lives that have been nothing but combat. So of course she knows how to fight. And, you know, she's very powerful. She spent a lot of time collecting powerful things and powerful knowledge, and we'll unpack some of that going forward, that she also has a history with being something of a witch that, you know, we hint at, but we'll get deeper into in volume 2. So, yes, she is powerful, but, you know, she's also flawed. What's up, Izzy Verse? Mm-hmm. Like, she doesn't make all perfect decisions. In fact, like, she kind of loses control of herself at a really bad moment. Like, you know, we definitely didn't try to avoid flaws with her or make her perfect, make her like somehow like always does the right thing and always wins. Like, I think it's fair to say that at the end of this book, like, it doesn't feel like a victory really.
Yeah. And one of the things I should point out to people, and I know that we've said this, but just to bring it up again, is that, you know, Josh, you just condensed a couple chapters of character development. All this information is dripped in a way where, again, just when you think you know Kolga, it's like, Oh, okay, here's another kind of little fact to bring in. Like, I felt like I learned more about her in this is the scene with the magistrate, I guess. Than
Yeah, the
anything else.
court, kind of the court
Oh yeah,
scene.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it definitely took me for a loop. But let me change the gears for a second. So
Yeah, of course.
you've been talking. You have comics, of course, graphic novels. You've got a video game. You're talking podcasts and audio kind of stories. I guess it's pretty clear, and you even said the story is like 10 years in the making. You've got a pretty clear big plan for this whole universe. So where do you want to see these books or this story, let's say 5 years from now?
Well, we're on track, and we plan to work as hard as we have to stay on this track. Apollyon albums. We do have some music coming out too. Dan has a band that's like a prog punk rock band, so there's going to be concept albums too. But Apollyon, we're hoping to have a volume out every winter, and then we're going to have a Kolga every fall. We have the novels. The first novel's completely written. It's been like edited. Like we've done 3 run-throughs of it, so it's pretty much ready to go. We just got to decide what the best plan is for how to release it and how to get it in people's hands. But when the novel comes out, that'll be, another thing. But like Kolga and Apollyon are going to be coming out every year. Spring, or I guess winter and fall is going to kind of be their release date. And we're on track to keep that going. Volume 2 of Kolga is fully scripted. As soon as I finish second volume of Apollyon, I'm rolling right into the second volume of Kolga. So like those are going to be coming out regularly. So 5 years from now, we're going to be very close to the end of those 2 storylines as far as what is planned for them. And then after we finish Kolga, we're going to be going into a spinoff that follows June, and which is her ward, her kind of sidekick character, that's called Reign of June, and that's going to be following her after the Kolga. Apollyon is it's got a very defined beginning and end, but we also have a series called the Blitz Beast that's going to be probably the first thing we release in floppies format, like individual issues, will be the Blitz Beast. And hopefully that may actually start next year if we're able to pull it off, if I'm able to get the time for it. Or if we were able to pick up another artist, we would go ahead and start releasing Blitz Beast issues next year. I'm hoping that by the time you guys are reading volume 4, volume 5 of these things, you're going to look at it and say, I can't even imagine that we're here in this story versus where we started. Like, those first, both Apollyon and Kolga are fairly insulated and, tell a pretty focused story. Each volume from there is going to expand. It's going to spread out. The world gets larger and larger and larger. So about 5 years from now, I think people are going to really see, like with Apollyon, by volume 4 or 5, it's going to, the scale of it is going to be global. Like it starts off as a very focused on these small group of characters, but it's going to be global by the time we get to volume 4, volume 5. It's going to feel a lot like, if you've ever read the manga of Akira, that's our main focus as far as like our inspiration for Apollyon, is to hit that level of just expansing. And it's very apocalyptic. It's literally going to be the end of the world we know and the birth of the GODFOE universe.
So in 5 years, you could, in theory, have somebody who's reading the novel with one hand, reading a floppy or a trade paperback or both with another hand, listening to the music, playing the game. Like you're really, it's not so much creating a narrative. You're really creating a whole immersive experience.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want it to be something that people love to plug into, and like the world around us kind of sucks. Like we want to give you another, like something that's really cool. That's even just the web page. Like if you go to the GODFOEUniverse.com, like we have almost 200 pages worth of something called Lamentations and Revelations. That's like esoteric poetry and art photography project stuff that's in world. And some of it's like, it's weird, but it's in world, and it kind of fleshes out just the feel of the world. That's how the world is changing in Apollyon. Like, we want to have this immersive, fun, cool thing that everybody can come and be a part of. And it takes a long time to build that, and we appreciate that it takes a while to build a platform, to build a fan base. But we're also trying to make sure that we deliver content that's worth your money. And if you go to our indie page, we got Kolga right now is in demand. Mm-hmm. And if you go to the Indiegogo for Kolga, we have a catch-up tier where you can get the first volume of Kolga, which is 100 pages, and the first volume of Apollyon, which is just a little shy of, it's like 180 something pages, I think. And all of that's for like $35. So you're getting like 300 pages almost for $35. And I don't know if anybody is offering that as a deal right now in the indie.
No, certainly not any of the big two. I can tell you that much. But I should mention as well, I do have a link to the Indiegogo campaign in the description of this show. But can people also go to the GODFOE site to make purchases?
I know Apollyon is up, and I believe so we just got the books, the Kolga books just came in like a few days ago from the printers, and anybody who's already that were in that first batch of orders, those have already been sent out. People are already getting them. So right. we finished up and went to fulfillment within I think 2 weeks. We were fulfilling those orders. I know Dan was going to get Kolga up as soon as he was planning to do it yesterday, and the storm blew out all their power. So whenever he gets power back, I know he's going to get Kolga up on our webpage store as well. But yeah, right now the Indiegogo is the best place to get Kolga. And again, if you want to get called up, that tier is available. You can get Apollyon and Kolga at $35, I think, is the deal.
And I should mention this in case I didn't already. Their Indiegogo fully funded. It looked like pretty quickly too. So
yeah, we did. We ran it for I think we only ran it for a month.
Yeah, it's not even a gamble at this point. Like, you can go and get your stuff.
Yeah, and we'll get it to you fast. As soon as we get that order in, we send it out. We pride ourselves on getting books out fast, and you'll get some extra goodies in there while they last. Some stickers and little art print and stuff. We got little goodies that we're throwing in there for people too that support us while they last, and we're trying to build goodwill with people.
Let me ask
earn your trust.
Talk about a little bit about the path to where we are right now. What are some challenges as an indie creator that you've seen, or maybe even just some pitfalls, I guess, things that you've picked up on it?
All right. Well, for one thing, you're starting from scratch, and I know that there are guys that are in the indie scene now that started in Marvel or DC, so they've already got recognition for their name and their brand and all that, and I don't begrudge them that. They've earned that. But the rest of us, you're starting with nothing, and you have to earn people's trust, and you have to get it in front of the right people that understand it and appreciate it, and then they become ambassadors for your brand. So I think a big challenge is just building notoriety, getting in front of enough people. And that's where, I so appreciate people like you that will have us on a show, that will spend some time talking with us and give us a platform, share their platform. Because the biggest problem in indie is ego. There are so many egos in indie comics, and there's so much just petty middle school BS that happens on Twitter, and you got people who build their whole platform on top of crapping on somebody else's, and that's like the only thing they do is talk about how much they hate Rippaverse or whatever. It's their whole identity is just poking holes in everybody else. And Dan and I from the get-go said, we're not going to be a part of that.
Yes. Welcome to YouTube.
We're not going to be a part of that. So No, it's just a matter of how do you stand out. Like there's a lot of indie books out there. How do you stand out? How do you do something that's different? And for us, our approach is quality content, getting it out quickly, and getting and being consistent. Consistently delivering good quality books, more bang for your buck than just about anybody else is going to give you, and taking the time to give people something that we know is going to not just sit on their shelf. I know for a fact that you're going to read Apollyon Volume 1. You're going to read that again next time. When Volume 2 comes out, you're going to read Volume 1 again. I know that you're going to pull Kolga off and read it again because I know I would. I think about some of those books, like I always go back to the Weapon X that Barry Windsor Smith did. I've read that 1,000 times. I've read The Dark Knight Returns 1,000 times, and I'll probably read it 1,000 more times. Like if it's good, like if it's really, truly good, people are going to want to read it more and more and more and get something fresh out of it every time. And that's what our high watermark is. Not let me see how many subscribers I can get. It's I'm going to put out something that I'm proud of, and I'm going to hope to God that I find the people that enjoy it the way that I enjoy it. And, we don't get involved in any of this back and forth. We're friendly with anybody that's friendly with us, but we're not taking the bait on any of that stuff either. It's also, I think a lot of people in the indie world, they're not putting out, try to find a way to say this. We're not going to do 10 different variant covers. I'm not paying thousands of dollars to people to do 10 different variant covers and a glow in the dark variant and then a full, like we're putting out one book and it's a complete story and we want you to enjoy it. And we care about what's between those pages a lot more than how many gimmicky things I can throw on top of it. And, I think that the expectation from a lot of people when they go to campaigns is, well, I want to see all this different stuff that I can add on. And we really haven't played that game, and it hadn't hurt us. We've Apollyon has sold well. I think the biggest thing is just getting in front of people, meeting people, going to cons, going to signings, letting people talk to us, letting people, like even before Kolga came out, when we just had Apollyon on the table, we had the first chapter of Kolga already just printed out and in a binder so people could read through it and say, hey, this is what's coming next. And sign up for the mailing list, and we'll let you know when it's available. And that worked. People signed up, and when it was available, they backed it. And we're hoping that number just keeps growing of people that say, "Hey, whenever these boys put something out, I want to be one of the first ones to get it."
Yeah, you hit on a lot of good things here. I agree with you as far as getting pulled into internet drama, that type of thing. I can tell you that when I first started watching videos on YouTube, comic videos, in the middle of the pandemic, like all of us here. I know that not everybody in the country had a similar experience. Here in the Northeast, we were shut down. Like you couldn't go anywhere. Like that was it.
Yep.
So that's what you saw a big boom, I think, with comic book YouTube. It was easy to see there's a lot of people who were just kind of like, all right, I'm going to go on and shit on this person and this person and this person. And I think that when you have that type of environment, the people who were genuine and positive and giving useful information shine through. And I get a sense, and I'll be honest, I haven't had any, I should say this, I haven't come across any indie creators yet that I feel have kind of got into that. But you can tell the people who are putting a lot into their craft and people who are just, here's one book, you may never hear from me again. But I give a credit to anybody who's willing to sit down and put their thoughts on paper, whether it's a script. How many times, and I equate it to a Kevin Smith movie. I'm a Jersey guy, so I have to go with Kevin Smith. You could turn a conversation that sounds stupid with a friend of his about a guy turning into a walrus into a feature film. And whether you like it or not, or whether it's good or not, to be honest with you, is not pertinent. It's the fact that I had this idea, I'm going to run with it. Whoever likes it, great.
Yep.
That being said, I'm not a film producer, so maybe they might have a different opinion.
No, I agree with you though. Anybody that takes the time to put pen to paper and put themselves out there, like, you deserve respect, and if you can do that consistently and you can give people something that they enjoy, then like you deserve to build on top of that. And I think the cream always rises to the top.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a long time to build a fan base that's big enough to support it, and that's fine. That's fair. People, money's tight. So I know everybody that decides to give us money for our book, it means the world to me, because I know you chose to buy my book over something else. Like when we go to a con and we're surrounded by, there's Deadpool right there, and there's a bunch of Batman right there, and Spawn's over here, and then there's some kind of cheesecake naked chick right here, and you walk through all of that stuff, and then they came back to our table and bought our book. And I know good and well that teenager that came back to my table and bought my book, I mean, they didn't walk in there with $300 to blow on whatever they want. Like, they were careful and they came back to our table. That means the world to me. That means the world to me, because I know that there's something that you saw yourself in, and that you're like, this is a story that I want to take home with me. And man, it means the world to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I think a lot of that is, that's getting to a bigger discussion about the market in general. I think a lot of it is when you have these giant characters like Batman, like Spider-Man, like the X-Men, like Superman, it's immediately, you're going to put a story. If you're lucky, half the people will love it and half the people will hate it enough to talk about it so that other people check it out.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're going to an indie book, you don't have the pull of, hey, here's Rogue. That's all you need to sell it. It's like, all right, here's this interesting story that I'd really like to give it a try. And I think that's why, at least in my opinion, the people who are doing it right, indie-wise, they kind of know what's at stake. And like, hey, look, I might not have another opportunity to get your attention. Mm-hmm. So this book that I'm going to put out, this story, it's got to connect with you or else I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's scary, like being on this end of it, then you're the one that's investing in it, and not just money, but you're investing your time and your effort and your energy into it. Like, it is scary. You have those nights where you're like, oh God, what if this sucks? What if nobody likes it? What if I suck? But you push through that and you release it and you get it out in front of people and you find out, hey, it connected with this person in a big way. And we try, we've had a lot of people that they'll message us on social media and be like, they've got 1,000 questions. And I love that the book gave them that many questions, that they care enough to be like, I want to know. Like, that's so cool to me, that people were engaged enough in it. And I think, we don't have the recognition, instant recognition of like 50 years of TVs and movies and cartoon shows behind our characters, but we also don't have 50 years of baggage behind that. True. It's a completely new character. We tried to make it a world that feels very unique and, something that people can connect to and relate to, but still be like, this feels like fresh. It feels original. It doesn't look just like, you mentioned earlier Batman, but he isn't really Batman, but he might, like, we didn't do that.
Yeah.
We're not doing cape books. I love superhero books, but these aren't superhero books that we're doing. Even Apollyon, even though it does have super like characters that have abilities or powers and all, it doesn't feel like a cape book. It feels a lot more grounded than, most of that kind of stuff. It's not a superhero book, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't love superhero books. Yeah. It's just the market's flooded with that stuff.
Yeah. And look, that's the great thing about comics in general, is that no matter what you're into, there's a book for that or close to that. And if you're lucky, sometimes it kind of crosses multiple genres. Mm-hmm. But I definitely have to catch up with the next volume of Apollyon, because I'm still even just thinking back to that ash can, and it was still just so heavy and mind blowing. But what I'm going to do, I typically bring my iPad down here because I work off of my phone, and do a little bit of a giveaway where I purchase something and send it over to somebody. I forgot to do that. The iPad is upstairs, so if you're watching this, whether live or on the replay, I'll give you guys maybe till Monday. Message me if you're interested in something, Colga related or Apollyon related, or maybe both, and I will randomly pick somebody at some point on Monday, and send something out.
Sweet.
I'm trying to think. I had another question for you, now it's escaping me.
Well, I'll add in on top of that. Anybody in the next week, and we'll coordinate this however we need to. But if you in the next week, if you were to order the catch-up package, not ketchup and mustard, but like the catch-up tier, if you get that has both volumes, I'll make sure that the art print that goes out, I'll make sure that all of those books are signed, and I'll give you an extra sketch on the back of the character sketch on the back of that art piece that goes out too.
So there you go. So again, we've got the Indiegogo link in the description. Click on that. Tell them Philtastic sent you, something like that.
Yep.
And you get a nice little thing. And look, those art pieces, those little sketches are always just a nice little incentive, nice little something original, because look, it's unique. And I can tell you, when you think of Colga, when you think of Apollyon, when you think of GODFOE, I think that's what you have to keep in mind is unique.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I think that was like the best kind of pitch I've ever given for somebody's project.
I appreciate it, man. It means a lot.
Well, I'm going to wind it down, but tell us again, where can people get anything from GODFOE?
The best place to start is always www.godfoeuniverse.com. That's God, GODFOE, godfoeuniverse.com. Everything else is connected through there. You can find our short films there. You can find the Lamentations and Revelations. You can buy Apollyon directly from there. Maybe by today, Colga will be available right through there. But if not, the link to the Indiegogo's there. There's trailers for both books that are available. If you just want to see a trailer to know, hey, what am I getting into? You can find all of that at that particular website. We are on all the socials, or at least most the ones that matter. Like we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, or X gonna give it to you.
I still can't call it X.
I can't either.
Yeah.
It's the wicked Twitter. No, I'm not calling it X.
Yeah, it's just, in fact, I think I deleted it from my phone when it popped up. I was at my in-laws, and I was like, what the hell is this X? Did I get some virus and somebody put like a porn app or something?
I was about to say, is this porn?
Yeah, I was like,
is
let
this
me
prawn?
delete this. And then I read afterwards, like, oh, okay, let me reinstall it. And it's like, okay, now I'm missing one of my Twitter pages just because I don't know the password. It was like, it's not important if I can't remember it.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
But yeah, like I said, definitely go to GODFOE. Look, even if you Google GODFOE, all one word, it comes up. That's the way I kind of kept remembering it. And they're not here live, but to my Stephen King quartet, we've been reading The Dark Tower, and we're going into... Yeah, that's a great show. Great film. Great movie. Not the film. Film, we had some feelings about last week.
Yeah, the film is not grand, but God, those books.
Never have I watched a McConaughey movie and said, can somebody call Kate Hudson and step in, please?
Yeah, it was not good. It was not good, but good grief, I love those books. That's that's one of the best, series of all time.
Oh, yeah, here's Evils. I was thinking about Evil Comics.
The Tower.
When I said that. Yeah, Mike, if you go to the GODFOE Universe page and you start looking at all of the Lamentations, everything he was saying, it's very reminiscent, to be honest with you. Right now we're reading the Dark Tower graphic novels, including all of the extra material in the back.
Yeah.
And when you started talking about, hey, the fan stuff and that was the first thing I thought of. Like, wow, they're really building this in a very King-like way.
I'm a huge King fanatic. I have first editions of almost all of his on the shelf to my left.
Then you gotta, if you haven't been in touch with him or see him, you gotta go to Evil's channel, because
I will. I'll check you out, man.
He's great. And I'll tell you, he's one of the best comic book reviewers and novel reviewers out there. But huge.
Nice.
I went into this year like I need to read more books, and this kind of popped in like, oh, I'm going to do a Dark Tower book club, and I was like, Oh, okay. I didn't know it was
Well,
$10.
Evil, I need to give Evil Comics. If you'll reach out somewhere through socials or whatever, I'll reach out to you. I've got several horror short stories that I have up on medium.com. I'll send you those, man. If you like a reading horror, I'll send you those.
Oh yeah, and just I can't say enough great things about Mike. So I feel like you guys are going to get along really well.
Nice. I always like meeting a new friend.
Yeah. Well, like I said, hey, look, go to the GODFOE Universe page. Go to the Indiegogo. Again, Josh is nice enough to give us some incentives here. And that's all I have for you today, Josh. Is there anything
I
else
appreciate
you want
it.
to leave us with?
I'm just to lean into, GODFOE is its own thing, but Legacy Comics, I do work with Legacy. We have several projects out right now. I'm a part of the Condry Omnibus that he has out now. So, like, you mentioned Sin City. If you like the kind of gritty, violent stuff, Condry would be right up your alley. And like, I've got my Sarita one shot as a part of that omnibus. I did
you did Sarita?
Yeah, I did Sarita.
I liked that one a lot.
I appreciate it. I liked it too. Yeah, that was a very emotional human story. I enjoyed that. I did Sarita. I did the Angel of Death, which is a ash can that's included in that, sort of a short story in that. And I've done a lot of cover stuff. He also has Brooklyn Bleeds over there at Legacy, and I did several covers for Brooklyn Bleeds books, and they have a little Omni as well. So definitely check out Legacy Comics with an X.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff over there that I'm a part of as well. Patrick's a great guy. There's a lot of good dudes over there working on some really cool comics in that realm too.
Yeah.
So definitely don't want to do this without shouting out that. We also did, if you want something kind of funny, it's been one of the best sellers lately, but I did the mutant
we were talking about that.
Midland Beach Turkeys. It's silly, it's funny, had a blast with that as well. So there's a lot of stuff out there to find. I just appreciate the opportunity to be on here and talk about everything.
Yeah, and look, I've had Pat on a couple times. We've done a little bit of work together, so it's people here who know, they're probably like, he's talking about Legacy again. These guys are in very good company, and this was unplanned. It's not like, hey, you get my friend in here. No. So this is good by association, I guess you could say. The coffee's kicking in. I'm just losing all control of English at this point.
We get Forrest Whitaker eyes when we know it's time to stop.
But in 10 minutes it'll be all right, let me sit down for.
Yep, the crash.
Yeah. But Josh, thanks again for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Guys, you got to check out GODFOE. That's the if I've never given a better pitch for anything before, watch today's episode. I feel like I did it pretty good.
You did, man.
On the back.
I appreciate it. I'll pat you on the back.
Thank you. Everybody else, thanks again for checking us out. No show next week. Again, it's Comics Curing Cancer is going on next week, so I'll take that off. Let some of the guys, kind of expand on that. I don't have any guests lined up for the October yet, so stay tuned to my IG and you'll see what's coming up next. In the meantime, I thank everybody for giving us their time today. Thanks, Josh, certainly for giving us your time, knowledge, and energy. And to everybody, peace, love, and comics. Take care.